Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Friday, December 16th, 2016. My name is Rich, and joining me this week is Bijan. How you making out?
Doing good, man. This was a really good episode, so I'm super happy about that. I'm super psyched, dude.
This was the best episode we've had so far. Like, they saved the best for last. Well, almost last. It's the last of the qualifiers.
Yeah, but man, it was. Yeah, I have to agree with you, man. This was. It's hard because it's a different kind of fun. I really enjoyed the MIT episode just because it was such a underdog story. But this one, in terms of just the competition and everything, so good. I loved everything about it.
It was next level. We kind of had an underdog story. We had a lot of good back and forth, some close matches. It had everything. This was everything College Madness should be.
Yeah, it was fun, dude. And I was thoroughly impressed. There was one major breakout star for me, and I'm super excited. We definitely have an athletically profound runner of the night.
I think I know who it is, but we'll wait till we get to the end to figure out who that is.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those that aren't aware, we're talking about Team Ninja Warrior College Madness. We covered the episode 4. We're also going to be covering the National Ninja League, Power Park, and New Era competitions. So, jumping into College Madness, we had the Michigan Wolverines versus the Ohio Buckeyes, and the Wisconsin Badgers versus the Maryland Terrapins. And when I looked at the two matches, I'm like, oh, we know all the... I don't know. I was just thinking, football and basketball, I guess, because I'm like, Michigan and Ohio are going to run away with this, and it was the complete opposite.
I didn't make that connection at all, man. It's funny because when they're going through the stats of everything, it felt like Wisconsin really had a leg up on everybody. But, yeah, I was actually impressed by how close the competition was.
And we went 0 for 4 for the season.
This curse that we're making on these teams, dude, it's so bad. Like, we have that terrible curse powers, I almost don't want to choose my team to win the whole thing. We'll get into it later, man, but I feel so bad for putting the stink on a certain team in the finals, dude.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid. I mean, really, we had limited information coming into it. I mean, they did what they could to give us a little bits here and there. But, I mean, now, having seen all 16 teams, we have a much better understanding of where the strengths are and who's good and who's maybe not as good.
With that said, I still would have never in my life picked Team MIT. And it just does astound me.
Yeah. But yeah, right off the bat, so we had Michigan versus Ohio, and even though these were the two weaker teams, it was still a good matchup. It was still really good right off the bat.
Wait, you think Ohio was a weak team?
Yeah. Of the teams, yeah, Ohio was weaker, I would say, for sure.
Man, I loved Ohio State, man. I was actually quite impressed by them. I will say I was disappointed by Michigan, far disappointed by what they brought to the table, but Ohio actually kind of impressed me. I like them.
Yeah, nothing against Ohio. Ohio could have won last week's for sure.
Yeah.
like there were at least three teams in this episode that could have won one of the other episodes.
Yeah, it was definitely the matchups, They had some very stiff competition, but even the question marks for me in terms of Ohio, I forget the name of the football player, but the football player alone, I was just like, I don't know if this guy will have it, and he was just beast moding this course. It was crazy to watch.
Yeah, I think that was Clay Raderman, one of the brothers that were running. He was in the first matchup, and man, he looked really strong, all around great. I just had no complaints right over the whole thing. I mean, the women in the first matchup, Bryn versus Liv, they were both pretty tentative, but they weren't that bad. Bryn ended up missing the cargo net, but I didn't really have much problem with them either. Then we had the last matchup. They were all great. I just was really pleased on the first round and thought I was seeing the best two teams until I saw the next matchup, which is one I really
You're
like.
like, oh boy.
Oh my God. Wisconsin versus Maryland was amazing.
Yeah, that was a really fun matchup.
And even though they got swept, and that was the weird thing about it is, Wisconsin was crazy good, crazy next level good. I was like, Maryland's going to friggin' take second. There's no way, or they're going to be in the finals because Maryland was right on their heels.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's all about the matchups, right? Because Wisconsin, in a way, just made Maryland look so weak, but yet they're such an incredibly strong team, and I think we got more, I guess, a better picture of that in their second matchup. So it's very curious to see just how these teams look compared to other teams. It's all about those matchups.
Yeah, it's hard to keep that perspective at times when you have Zach racing through the course like an absolute maniac. You don't fully appreciate how good Marcos was, but I was immediately drawn to him. I'm like, that Marcos guy is amazing.
He's good, yeah.
He's right behind him. I'm like, I'd love to see him match up against somebody else. And of course, we did get to see him do that in the next round. Mm-hmm. But the one I want to talk about before we move on from this matchup is Taylor. She was fantastic.
So Taylor was just amazing in my opinion. Everything about it. I'll go into it later, but Taylor really, really impressed me this episode. I think they said that this is her first time on the course, but she has been doing some training, and you can just see just the absolute fundamentals with her. She was doing everything picture perfect. All the technique was right, and she even brought in some technique characteristics from her own sport of pole vaulting, where she used a lot of her core with a lot of the transition obstacles and everything, and made very good transitions. And one thing that really struck me is the two top females in the sport, Megan Martin and Jessie Graff. They have one defining characteristic that they both share, other than American Ninja Warrior, of course, and that is that they have a background in pole vaulting. I never made that connection before, Rich. It's crazy, but it makes a lot of sense.
How do you miss that? That is like a well-known thing. That is like the secret ninja skill.
It is, right? And in my head, I knew they both had a background, but I never made that connection that they both had that background, if that makes sense. So it's like, I'm like, oh yeah, like pretty much like the top of the heat in terms of female athletes in the sport. They all kind of come from pole vaulting, and man, does it show. Like, it is absolutely amazing just how many fundamental aspects of coming from a pole vaulting background, I guess, you get for the sport. Not just that, I'm pretty sure Kevin Bull also has a background, not in pole vaulting, but something very similar to it. So, this sport just comes hand in hand with American Ninja Warrior and obstacle course racing. And yeah, I am very, very high up on her.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, and I very well might be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Cassie Craig and Tiana Weberly are both pole vaulters too. Like, a lot of the top females are, especially, and I'm willing to bet it's because you need a strong upper body to do that. And, for women, it's not as common to have a strong upper body. It's not, most of their sports don't involve that as much. Mm-hmm. So, and on top of that, it requires to be a good burst capability and speed, right? Like what you would need for the warped wall. You need to be able to sprint from like a standstill. And they've kind of got a good package of those skills that you would need for a ninja competition.
Yeah, in a way, it's kind of like the female's equivalent to the men's, rock climbers, just a background that fits perfectly hand in hand for the transition into this sport. I'll go into it later, but just one thing to just absolutely accentuate how well she was doing in her runs is watch how she does the pole grasper. Her technique in the pole grasper is unlike anybody else this entire competition, and it's these subtle little small technique things that she has that makes her stand out above the pack. And man, she took the top run or the top time out of all the females in this entire series, and it shows, man.
Yeah, it really stood out, especially like you said, technique-wise. It wasn't just that she was good; she was just solid. Like you watch her even on, simpler obstacles, doing a rope swing. She pulls her legs up perfectly, like well above the water. There's no no dragging her feet at all. Like, everything she did was great.
Before we transition, though, sticking with Team Wisconsin, I'm very curious. How did you feel about Zach Kemmerman being on the team, or Kemmermer being on their team? Because I feel like some people might have some, I don't know if controversy is the right word, but might be reticent in having him on the team just because he's older. He's 27, whereas from all the other teams, it seemed like the old people were 22. And not just that, he's already been on American Ninja Warrior. Do you think this was the right show for him to be on, or do you think it should have been a show entirely made up of newcomers?
I'm not sure how I feel about it now they say that. I didn't realize he was 27. That kind of changes my opinion of it more so than the fact that he was on Ninja Warrior, because I had no problem. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to the ones that, work in ninja gyms and things. There's always something that puts people kind of at a different skill level or at an advantage. But yeah, I don't know. That seems a little odd to me.
It seems like a gigantic advantage, and I feel like it showed. At the same time, I don't necessarily have too much of an issue with it as long as it's open up to other teams. But it definitely stood out in this episode where when he was going up against other people, he clearly knew what he was doing. And the other guys, they knew what they were doing to a certain aspect, but it seemed like they were learning on the way, just like everybody else in this entire series. And it was of the fabric of people that train at ninja gyms, but tenfold, because this guy had a comfort level, and not just that. I mean, you just see him compared to the other guys. His body is just more developed and everything. I don't know. He just stood out entirely different from the entire pack. I mean, watching him go up against Marcos, who is also really good in his own ways, it was kind of just like, oh boy. It's like watching, I don't know, a Ninja Warrior coming against a nobody, Alfred,
It's like the men's U.S. basketball team in the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
It's just, there's nobody that's going to compete with them. Or the Canadian men's hockey team. It's just how it works. They're just going to stand. They might be good. The other teams might be good, but it's just, there's no competition.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. It's an interesting topic. Maybe I'm curious what other people think about that. So hit me up, guys, on Twitter and Instagram. I want to hear your thoughts on that because I don't know. It's an interesting one. I don't know how I feel fully.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit of talk about it. Now that you said that, it kind of rings a bell a little bit. So yeah, we'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that. If you think that was an unfair advantage, I'm going to go with it's okay. I think it does go against the spirit of the whole competition a little bit, but I don't think they should have any rules against it.
As a 28-year-old grad student, if it's open, I'll give a thumbs up. They just need to represent SDSU now, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that would have seemed perfectly fair for you to join in, but then again, you haven't been on American Ninja Warrior either, but...
Good point, yeah. I would be the guy competing against him being like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll give it my all.
So here was the interesting thing. So Maryland loses that matchup, so they have to go again immediately. And they got swept completely. So typically, that would seem to put them at a big advantage. They did get swept, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the second matchup. I'm like, no, they didn't. But, yeah.
No, in the second matchup, it was really, really close in the first matchup. It was like the closest finish they've had. It was like 0.1 seconds difference between them. So Maryland takes that one. And then Delaney versus Bryn. Bryn didn't dismount from the Sonic Swing properly, and Maryland ends up getting the point. So that puts them up by 2, and it looks like they're going to go from being swept to sweeping the other team. So then it's Marcos versus CJ in a fantastic, like, back-to-back matches that were, like, favorite. Mm-hmm. This was my favorite match of the season, watching this go down.
Wasn't it nice getting the opportunity to watch them go up twice? It was really fun to watch. Not just that, I have to give a shout out to Maryland because not only did they have to go back to back, but they showed a lot of heart in this matchup, they really impressed me, and it's all about that thing of, matchups make everything, because even though they didn't look very strong against Wisconsin, they really showed how strong they were up against this matchup with Ohio. And Marcos, man, whew, just he showed a lot of heart. You have to realize at this point, going into the third and final matchup for his team, he had already run twice in a very close proximity to one another. So in terms of his muscles and all the fatigue in his body, he was probably done. And he showed grit and gutted it out, learned from his mistake in the first or the second run with CJ, and just won the whole thing. Really, really impressed me with that.
Yeah, it's almost the closest you can possibly run three runs together, right? By losing the first matchup and then having to go back to back in this one. It was just like a nightmare for the poor guy. And then he finally did it in his last matchup. As great as he was doing, putting up these great times that would win most matchups, he got his first win on his rematch against CJ. Felt really. I'm glad he managed to get a win, because I thought if he's going home without a win, that's just completely unfair.
Yeah, and special shout out to Merrick and Kessimer. I forget the guy's name, but from Ohio in the first matchup, very close, very fun. I really enjoyed that matchup.
And then we moved on to a not so close matchup. It was Wisconsin versus Michigan.
Oh, it was hard to watch.
Yeah, this was a little bad. This was the only one that was pretty lopsided, and you're like, oh, this is just not going well for the other team at all. The first match, Andrew absolutely destroyed him. Not that Joseph did badly necessarily, but Andrew was fantastic. And then Liv got hung up on the sonic swing, and she was out. I mean, Taylor was just way ahead of her at that point already. And Carl made one small mistake, and it didn't, you couldn't make any mistakes against Zach. The guy just freaking flew through the whole thing and made it a clean sweep for Wisconsin. They won 6 in a row.
Yeah. Don't have much to say about that. It was just picture perfect.
Yeah, that is a strong, strong team. So then they went on to the relay showdown. We had Wisconsin versus Maryland, a rematch from the very first one. So Maryland had a chance to try to make up for the first meeting, and just couldn't do it. Oh my God, that team is strong. Delaney actually did really good against Taylor in the beginning. I thought she was actually going to be they were going to be tied at the first tag, but she got hung up right on the cargo net. If she hadn't made that one little slip up, they would have been neck and neck.
Mm-hmm. I will say it was a fairly close matchup until the end, right? But once again, Maryland showed a lot of heart in their matchup against Wisconsin in this, but I really have to give it to Wisconsin. They were calm, collected the entire time, very good technique, and they were not just technique though, they were very fast just in their own, sensibilities of strength and endurance and all of that. They were really good. I really enjoyed their team, and the one thing I'll say about this team more than anything else is they might be the most well-rounded team in this entire series. And that is a big, big thing, because as we know, in Team Ninja Warrior, you're only as strong as your weakest member, and this team doesn't really have a weak teammate. So really impressed by Wisconsin.
Yeah, I am going to go down. So we've got our 4 teams now. We have it's going to be Wisconsin going up next week versus Georgia, MIT, and UCLA. Mm-hmm. So do you want to throw your hex on your favorite team, or how do you want to do this?
Do you want me to make the first pick, or what?
Yeah, go ahead. Are you going to change your mind up now, or?
Well, the team I want to win is MIT, but the team I'm going to choose to win, the team that I think is actually going to win, is Team Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Now, sorry if that was your pick, but Wisconsin, I fully think will win, just because when we talk about all the things that are required for this show, while Team MIT is very good and they're winning based on their assets of technique, Wisconsin has that technique also, but they are just more physical. They're a lot better in terms of a background. They're more geared towards Team Ninja Warrior, and they match Team MIT in the strengths of, hitting the buzzer every single matchup they were in. But not just that, man. The biggest thing of all is that they are fully well-rounded. Every member of their team is strong, whereas Team MIT, I feel like, although all the members are strong, well-rounded in their own fronts, they're just not at that same level. Boy, do I hope I'm wrong, though. I want MIT to win, but I think Wisconsin will take it.
I thought MIT had it till I saw Wisconsin. I don't see the women beating Taylor, for one. So right off the bat, and if they do, there's no way they're beating both Taylor and Andrew. So...
Oh, I was about to say Zach, man.
But that's what I mean.
That's the thing. It's
all they need is 1 point, and then Zach's going to bring it home for them. There's just no way. If they somehow manage to beat both of them, they'd have to beat Zach twice, and that is not happening. So they're going. There's no way they're not going to be in the finale, or the final relay.
That's the question, though. Is will a team make a mistake in the relay? We can't, at this point, we have to respect the relay because we saw Team Houston go out in the very first episode by making one simple mistake. So it could happen. I don't think it necessarily will happen when it comes to this level and this pedigree of competitor, but there is always that small chance.
Oh, there's always a chance. So it's going to be a fantastic finale. It's going to be, I think... It's pretty safe to say, I would feel pretty confident in saying that the final relay is going to be MIT versus Wisconsin. So it's going to be really fun to watch.
So what you're saying is Team UCLA is winning the competition now, right?
Yeah, probably. We just cursed them so bad it's going to end up being... Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, because the other thing is that UCLA is not a team to sleep on. They're actually strong as well. But I don't know, man. I agree with your sentiment that I think MIT and Wisconsin will probably be in the finale. We just don't know how these matchups will go. It could be just as easy that UCLA beast modes the whole thing. Who knows?
All right. So I'm really looking forward to next week.
It's going to be fun.
After last week's episode, it was I'm kind of okay with watching this week, so wasn't very excited to watch it. But now I'm amped. I really want to see the finale now.
Yeah. I think it's all about the competition, and we have some very strong teams coming into this finale, and I'm excited about that. So, yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the National Ninja League, we've got Power Park and New Era. So looking at Power Park, the women we had in third place, Brittany Hanks, who ended up falling on a nunchuck transition, which we also saw second place, Gianna Manners, fall on that same nunchuck. She made the transition, but she did fall after that.
Just to explain, guys, the reason two competitors fell on this nunchuck is it wasn't just a nunchuck transition. It was a bunch of upper body obstacles, then a cannonball transitioning to a nunchuck, and then from that nunchuck you have to transition to a further away cannonball. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it was pretty ridiculous, especially the size of the cannonball.
Yeah.
And first place was Barclay Stockett, who we've seen before. And she was really good. We saw she had such a great beginning. She made everything look pretty easy.
Oh my God. You see those back muscles, man? She was just so... the transitions she was doing was so flawless because she's so strong in terms of her upper body back, where she can do these pulling swings and get extra swing. I don't even know how to describe it, man. But it was just beautiful to see in terms of a technique transition. And she seemed so incredibly comfortable with all of these swinging upper body obstacles. It was really cool. Somebody like her, though, she did a lot of obstacles that played to her strengths and her body type. With Stockett, and this is one thing that I really like about obstacle course racing is you get people that are maybe well-rounded with one type of obstacle, but they need to be able to, produce in all different facets of it. So I was really curious to watch her do more parts of the course, and I really hope we see her again because I'm curious to see how well she'll do with other types of obstacles.
Good point. She ended up falling on the Sonic curve jump, but overall she did great. It was kind of weird. It's weird how that works. There's so many times that we watch these and we see the second and third place contestants go a certain, amount through the course, especially with the women, it seems. And then there's just one person that just dominates and just makes the parts where the other people fell look easy by comparison, like just breezing through.
Oh, yeah.
So great job, Barkley. Moving on to men, we had Nathan Burkhalter in third. Unfortunately, there's no footage of Nathan, who we've seen in the past. A very strong competitor. Second place was Tanner Ross. He made it past that sonic curve into the pipe slider. There were some really unique balance obstacles along the way.
Oh my, we need to talk about this. Because this was, when watching those guys run and seeing these balance obstacles, the only thing I was just like, nope. Like, there is no chance I can ever get through any of these. And it was crazy. These guys made these balance obstacles look way too easy. The level of difficulty these balance obstacles were unrealistic. There was one where it was kind of like a seesaw on this gigantic log. I don't even know if it was a gigantic PCP pipe or PVP, whatever it's called.
PVC.
Or PVC pipe or a giant log, but it spins on all four axes. Not only does it teeter-totter, but it also spins sideways also. Absolutely brutally insane. Like, I don't do it justice talking about it. You have to watch this thing. But the coolest one, and Rich, you can go into this more, but it was like this giant PVC pipe that it's kind of like there's tape on the floor that are zigzags, and you kind of have to like turn it while standing on it or roll it a certain way. So simplistic, but so unbelievably difficult. I loved that.
Yeah, I think you described it pretty well. That looked absolutely crazy. I don't know how you're supposed to follow that, but they did. They always find a way, right?
I can't believe these guys had that kind of balance, man. Like, it does not do it justice, guys. That is so difficult just to stand on those things, let alone roll it forward. And then with that, you have to roll it forward, stop, lift up one side kind of with your feet, and turn it a 90 degrees, and then keep rolling forward and everything. That is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
He did end up going out on the floating doors or floating boards. And in first place, we had Carson Williams, who looked really solid through the whole thing. Very similar to Tanner. And ended up falling on the floating boards as well. So great job. He just made it there a little faster than Tanner, so ended up winning the for Power Park.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, we also had New Era Ninjas. That is Drew Dressel's gym.
I just have to say before you keep going that Carson needs to stop biting off my style, man. It's
What do you mean, the haircut?
Yeah, dude. He's got both my beard and the bald head. Come on now. And you got the same skin color. And of course, he's got the same body type. I'm ripped to shreds too. Yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
Working on it. One day.
I don't even know how to reply. Moving on. We've got New Era. Third place for the women, we had McKinley Pierce. There was really limited footage from this, unfortunately. So we didn't get to see McKinley. Or second place, Amelia Becker. That's her first time qualifying. But we did get to see Alyssa Beard tackling the course. This course was more than a little crazy. First of all, and thankfully, actually, I was able to get a little more information by going to the New Era Ninjas Facebook page. There's lots of extra footage on there, a little more explanation. So there's a floor obstacle called the Time Warp. It's like a little clock-looking obstacle where they've got to rotate. If you picture like rotating the hand of a clock along, man, how do you describe this? Bijan, do you want to give it a shot?
You're standing on one end of a board where, with its base, and basically you have to lift up the other end and turn it kind of sideways, like almost a full 180 degrees in segments, of course. And there's little boards up that you have to lift it over to get past these segments. It's really cool looking. I've actually done an obstacle like it. But with that said, with these types of obstacles, what matters the most is how small the board is. and include also if there's weight to it. So we don't, from a visual aspect, you can't really tell how difficult it is. But these are always really creative obstacles, really fun. Yeah,
that one was pretty cool. I was pretty happy with that one, but it had nothing on what they called the unstable alley. What did you think of the 5 unstable bridges strung together at weird angles?
Well, it was ridiculous. It was a bunch of unstable bridges, but, when you look at it, you're like, well, a lot of ninjas have trained on unstable bridges, right? So there might be their way to get through it. But then, towards the penultimate bridge is not just some regular bridge. It's a bridge on 2 axes, right? So it can spin. But not just that, it's kind of shaped in kind of like a puzzle piece where it kind of grooves in and out and all this weird stuff where you really have to catch your hands go very quickly going in a segment and then outwards while shifting forwards. And not just that, since it's on 2 axes, you have to go very carefully with your shift. So you have to be picture perfect. It was very creative. I love that small little thing that they did with the cutouts because it really makes it a whole lot more difficult.
Yeah, and definitely very tricky. We actually end up seeing Alyssa falling at that point of the unstable bridge unstable alley. But great job, Alyssa. It was fantastic. Moving on to the men, we saw Michael Torres in 3rd place. Well, we didn't actually see him, unfortunately. John Alexis Jr. got 2nd. But we did get to see Noel Reyes running the course. We get to focus on some of these obstacles we didn't see previously, like a balance obstacle that was made out of bowling balls, which was very unique.
Yeah, but I don't know what to add to that.
Yeah, there's not much to say. The course is very cool. You should definitely check it out. You can, like I said, you can see more of it on New Era Ninja's actual Facebook page. But Noel ended up timing out doing a pushing obstacle just before the warped wall at the end. So nobody actually ended up completing the course. It was just a little too much for them in the time given.
Yeah. I would definitely say go out of your way to watch the segments that you are alluding to, Rich, from New Era's own page because they go in more depth with the obstacles featured. Because of time restraints of having 2 different competitions in this video for National Ninja League, they didn't really show enough of the highlights of the obstacles featured in this course.
So that's it for our coverage of the National Ninja League. And before we wrap up the episode, I actually wanted to give a quick shout out to Simon Valancourt from Quebec, who is working on getting a pinnacle parkour there. I believe I have mentioned him on the podcast before. But he posted his stats the other day. Actually, he's a bigger guy. His BMI is up 44.9, 339 pounds. So as a bigger guy myself who's been struggling again, I'm on the upswing, guys. I hate to say it, but I am. I've been putting it back on instead of taking it off as I was trying to do with the couch to salmon ladder. So trying to refocus for the new year. I just want to give Simon some encouragement and say, you know what, hang in there. You can do it. I really can't stress enough, as much as I'm kind of being hypocritical now when I'm on an upswing, I've felt much better since I took that weight off, sleep better, and just feel better in general. I know the struggle, and we're here to encourage and help you, Simon, along the way.
Yeah, keep going at it, man. It's all about staying focused and keeping at it. Every pound counts. Every pound.
All right, so that is it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. If you could, make sure to like and subscribe if you're listening on YouTube. If you're in the podcast app, especially iTunes, rating and review is extremely helpful to the podcast. We'd really appreciate it. And if you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach us at rich@ninjapodcast.com or at @ninjapodcast on both Twitter and Instagram. And Bijan, how would they reach out to you?
Hit me up at Twitter and Instagram at Bijan151. That is Bijan 151.
So once again, thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a great week.
Go MIT! Rich, I knew I forgot something, man. It's our athletically profound athlete of the night. And this really shouldn't be any shock to anybody, but it for sure is, with no even close number 2, is Taylor Amon. She was absolutely flawless this entire episode. She did everything perfect. I mean, we went into it a whole lot during this whole recording, but just to refresh everybody, man, absolutely technically efficient every way possible. She is so incredibly built for this sport, and you have to just remember, guys, this is her first time on this course, in this crowd, in this environment and everything. I mean, obviously she does not pole dancing. What's wrong with me, man? Pole jumping. But in terms of this type of competition, this is her first time in it, and she exceeded expectations tenfold. She very much reminds me of early shades of Jessie Graff, if there's one person that really stands out like that. And I think just 1 or 2 years, maybe 3 years, of her fully getting entranced in the sport, training at ninja gyms and doing all that, I really think we're going to see somebody that is going to excel incredibly well in this whole competition. I am very, very looking forward to watching her on American Ninja Warrior. Very, very high up on her, guys. Keep an eye out. She's going to do some amazing things in the upcoming years.